The Vanishing Train. They say the night train is only for the desperate. It runs at odd hours, on tracks that seem to cut through forgotten towns. And no one can remember when it first began. The old station master swears. He's never sold a ticket for it, yet passengers appear silent, pale, clutching their belongings like they're clinging to life itself. On a cold autumn night, Jonathan Cross found himself waiting on the empty platform of Greyford Station. His watch ticked past midnight, and the last regular train had already departed. He wasn't supposed to be there, he wasn't even sure why he stayed. But something in the air, a low vibration beneath the ground, kept him rooted in place. The mist rolled in, thick and suffocating, swallowing the tracks whole. Then he heard the distant whistle of a locomotive. But it wasn't like any train he had heard before. It was deeper, slower, almost mournful, as if the steel itself was crying. A shadow emerged through the fog, the massive engine gliding forward without sound. Its windows were dark, yet Jonathan felt dozens of unseen eyes staring at him. The train came to a halt, the doors sliding open with a groan that echoed into the night. Inside, the carriage lights flickered weakly, revealing velvet seats that looked untouched by time. No passengers disembarked. No conductor stepped forward. Only silence, thick, pressing silence, invited him in. Jonathan hesitated. He should have turned back. He should have run. But something about the train called to him like a whisper threading into his bones, promising answers to questions he hadn't dared to ask. And so, with one step, he crossed the threshold. The doors slammed shut behind him. The vanishing train had claimed its next passenger. The carriage smelled faintly of rust and old paper, like forgotten archives. Sealed away for decades, Jonathan stepped carefully down the narrow aisle, his footsteps muffled by the faded red carpet. The air was cold, unnaturally cold, as though the warmth of life had been drained from the place long ago. Rows of empty seats stretched before him, but each one bore the faint impression of someone having just sat there. Cushions sagged slightly, as though invisible bodies still pressed against them. Jonathan whispered to himself, "Hello?" His voice bounced back, soft, muted, like the walls had swallowed it whole. Then the train lurched forward, not with the usual clatter of wheels on steel, but with a soundless glide, as if the laws of physics had been suspended. Jonathan's stomach tightened as he realized the train was moving faster than it should. Though no engine's roar accompanied the acceleration, he tried to glance out the window. But instead of the expected blur of passing trees or towns, there was only blackness. Not the black of night, but a void, a hollow absence, endless and suffocating. In that suffocating silence, he began to notice things he hadn't before. A whispering sound, faint at first, rising from the corners of the carriage. It wasn't the hum of machinery. It was voices, dozens of them, whispering, murmuring, chanting words he couldn't understand. Jonathan's breath quickened. He gripped the nearest seat, but the velvet felt raw and damp, as if soaked in something warm that had long since cooled. His fingers trembled when he pulled them away. And then, just for a heartbeat, he saw a reflection in the glass opposite him. Not his own. A pale woman with hollow eyes sat 2 rows behind, watching him in silence. When he turned around, the seat was empty. The voices grew louder. The vanishing train was no longer carrying him alone. Jonathan's heart pounded as the whispers intensified. They were no longer confined to the corners, they surrounded him, pressing in from every direction. Every window he glanced at reflected shadows, shapes that weren't his own. Suddenly, the faint sound of footsteps echoed through the carriage, slow and deliberate. Jonathan spun around, expecting to see another passenger, but the aisle remained empty. Then the seats ahead creaked. One by one, faint impressions appeared on the cushions, as though invisible passengers had materialized. A child sat quietly, head bowed. An elderly man slumped forward, murmuring incomprehensible words. A woman in a tattered dress stared at him with eyes black as coal. Jonathan tried to speak. Who are you?" But his voice failed him, caught in a throat that seemed to dry with fear. The train lurched violently, throwing him to the floor. The lights flickered, revealing glimpses of corridors that should not exist, hallways stretching into impossibly long darkness, doors opening and closing without touch. From the overhead speaker, a voice, calm yet hollow, echoed, "Next stop eternity." Jonathan scrambled to his feet, stumbling through the aisle. As he passed the empty seats, the whispers coalesced into words he could finally understand. "Stay, stay, don't leave, join us." Every instinct screamed at him to run. Yet the train seemed to extend endlessly, swallowing each exit he tried to reach. The reflection in the windows now showed dozens of pale faces staring back at him, each one silently mouthing the same plea, "Don't go." One of the figures reached toward him. Not with hands yet, he felt the touch, icy and heavy, pressing against his chest. He gasped, stumbling backward. The shadow withdrew, but not before the whisper pierced his mind. "You are ours now." Jonathan's vision blurred, his surroundings twisted. Seats became walls, walls became seats. The train no longer obeyed logic, time, or space. Each step forward only brought him deeper into the nightmare. By the time he understood what was happening, the realization struck him like a cold wave. This train did not take passengers to a destination. It claimed them, and he had just become one of its permanent riders. Jonathan's panic grew as the train seemed alive, twisting and breathing around him. The aisle stretched impossibly long, and every seat now bore the shape of a passenger, faces blank, hollow, yet somehow aware. From the shadows, a figure emerged. Taller than any human, its limbs elongated unnaturally, and its eyes glowed faintly like embers. The whispering chorus stopped as the creature approached. Yet its presence spoke louder than any sound. "This train is ours. You are ours." Jonathan tried to run, but the floor itself shifted beneath his feet, forming corridors that looped back on themselves. Every door he opened led to another carriage filled with more shadowy passengers. They all turned to him, silently watching, mouths opening in unison, as if chanting a wordless command. Then he saw it, the engine. Not the metal locomotive outside the window, but a massive, black maw where the engine should have been. It pulsed and breathed like a living organism, consuming light and sound. The rails beneath the train vanished into darkness, and the distant whistle he had heard before now roared from everywhere at once. The train's true nature revealed itself. It was not a vehicle. It was a predator. It traveled through the void, hunting those who dared to board. Each passenger was devoured, not physically, but in mind and soul. Their fears, memories, identities all absorbed into the endless darkness of the vanishing train. Jonathan screamed, but his voice was stolen, becoming another whisper among the countless voices trapped within. The pale woman from before stepped toward him, her lips moving silently. Her mouth formed the words in his mind, "Join us forever." Desperate, Jonathan lunged toward the nearest door. It swung open to reveal the platform he had entered from, but it was different now. The mist had thickened, obscuring the stars, the moon, the world he knew. A faint outline of the train's maw glowed behind him. He ran, but the train followed, stretching beyond the limits of reality itself. With every step, he felt his consciousness fraying, pulled into the shadows, absorbed by the very thing he had stepped aboard. The last thing he heard before the darkness swallowed him completely was a whisper, chilling and intimate. "Welcome to eternity, Jonathan. Welcome to the vanishing train." When morning broke, Greyford Station stood silent, bathed in the pale light of dawn. The tracks were empty, save for the faint imprint of wheels that had disappeared as mysteriously as they had arrived. No one saw Jonathan leave. No one saw him at all. The mist had swallowed him, or perhaps the train had. And yet, those who passed by the abandoned platform claimed they could hear it, a distant whistle, faint and mournful, carried on the wind. Locals whispered about travelers who had vanished after boarding the midnight train. Some believed it took those who were lost or desperate. Others said it harvested souls to feed something ancient and hungry. The station remained open, but the vanishing train never appeared for casual travelers. Only for the curious, the desperate, the ones who felt drawn by a force they couldn't resist. And somewhere, in a reality that intersected with our own, Jonathan walked the endless corridors of the vanishing train. He could hear the whispers, the voices of all the lost passengers before him, calling out from the shadows, "Welcome, we've been waiting for you." The train never stops. It never releases its passengers. Time has no meaning there. And if you are ever drawn to a lonely station late at night, watch the tracks closely, for the vanishing train is patient. It waits for the next soul, the next story to claim. Because curiosity can be deadly. And some journeys have no return.